I want you to close your eyes for a moment and just imagine meeting a version of yourself from 5 years in the future. Now, this version of you has achieved all that you're dreaming of currently. They've got that body that you want. They've got the house, the car, the job, everything that you want. And I want you to think just how you would feel about meeting that version of yourself. What would it spark in you? Perhaps it would spark in you a sense of disappointment, maybe that you weren't there yet, or that you didn't think you could reach it. But this is a version of yourself, so surely you can reach those dreams and aspirations. But perhaps there's something in the way. Perhaps there's something that's blocking you from getting there currently. I want to tell you a little story. It's a bit of a funny anecdote of me and a few of my mates, and it won't seem relevant to start with, but it will make sense later on. So me and a few of my mates, really good old friends. We've known each other since we were about 4 years old, so we have that kind of friendship where we can just communicate without even speaking. We just a little glance or a look at each other and we know what the other is thinking. So anyway, we're in a pub in London, and it's a board games pub. So you can imagine there's a wall of board games stacked up, and you can just go and pick one and take it to play. Anything from Monopoly to the Settlers of Catan. There's so many games in there, and we've been in there for a few hours playing, and we're several pints deep at this point. And we decide we're going to play one last game, and it's a game called Liar's Dice, or Perudo. You might know it from Pirates of the Caribbean, the Dead Man's Chest, where they're playing it with Davy Jones. And yeah, basically the point of the game is to try and bluff your way into making another person make a call that then means they lose the round. And so we sat down to play this, and me and one of my friends, we went off to the toilets and came back. And my other friend, who was holding the table for us, has just lined up 3 shots on the table. 2 of a clear liquid and 1 of a very dark brown. And he wouldn't tell us what they were, but working it out, we kind of figured that the dark one, that was probably Jägermeister, and then the 2 clear ones were probably most likely to be vodka and tequila. I don't think he could have picked 3 worse shots. But anyway, his proposition to us was that we would play 3 more rounds of Liar's Dice, and each time the person who lost would have to pick a shot and do it. So we agreed to this and began the first round. And it ended up that the friend who had bought the shots had to do one. And me and my other friend just looked at each other with that knowing glance and basically agreed without saying anything that we were going to stack it so that we would give each other easy calls and could make it very difficult for our other friends, so that he would end up having to do all 3 shots. So it ended up working out that he did indeed have to do all 3 shots, and it was vodka, tequila and Jägermeister. And I don't really think he saw that coming at the outset when he bought those shots. And so the reason I've told you that is because I think that level of self-sabotage, my mate had bought these 3 shots thinking that we were all going to end up doing one probably, and he got nailed with having to do all 3 himself. We can end up self-sabotaging ourselves sometimes in a similar vein, although perhaps we don't quite have the level of friends who will stack things in favour of us having to do those shots. But it's, I think, really important sometimes to take a step back from our lives and just see where we perhaps are sabotaging that future self, that dream self, those goals that we may have set for ourselves, and to really just take a look at it from a bit of an outside perspective. And so to me, there are really 2 categories of sabotage that we can do for ourselves. There is the kind of the knowing sabotage and the unknown sabotage. The knowing sabotage might be that we realise that we are doing something or not doing something, and we are actively then just not not addressing that issue. But there are also the unknown sabotages, the things that we may do, the mindsets we might have that are unbeknownst to us, being detrimental to our progress. You know, those unknown factors, like those sneaky friends who decide to stitch you up. And to me, identifying what those are in my life has just made such a difference. It's made me able to take action against the things that I don't need to be doing in my life, and take positive steps forward for the things that I do. You know, these YouTube videos, for example, I tried for many years making several different channels, and none of them really went anywhere. I was unknowingly sabotaging myself by setting unreasonable expectations, by not being authentic, and not really doing it for the right reasons. You know, I was either chasing viewers, or I was trying to put a version out there of myself that just wasn't me. But when I realised these and worked on that kind of the reason why I was doing it, I soon came to a conclusion that actually I was being called to make YouTube videos to help people, to take people like yourself through, who may be in a similar place to where I was, and to just step them through the lessons that I've learnt to hopefully help you along your journey. And so, coming back to those self-sabotages, the things that I really struggled with over the years were putting too much pressure on myself. I would set unreasonable expectations, unreasonable goals, without a really clear, defined plan of how I was going to get there. And also, I didn't have that why behind what I was doing. I find it can be very helpful, firstly, to write down your goals. You know, we talked about that future version of yourself at the start of the video, what car he has or she has, what where you live, all of those kind of things. And I think it can be very helpful to write down those goals rather than it just being thoughts in your head. It somehow helps to realise it for our brain and make it more of a reality. Because when you've written down those goals and you look back at them regularly, it can help you to just really focus in on what you're doing and make decisions as to whether the actions that you're taking at the moment are leading you down the path that you need to go on to reach those goals. You know, it may be that you've set yourself a goal of weighing a certain amount or lifting a certain amount in the gym. And it's kind of just up here until it's written down, and years go by and you've made absolutely no progress towards that goal. You maybe sabotage yourself by putting too much pressure on what your goal is. You know, it becomes a be all and end all, and you burn yourself out because you go all in for 6 weeks and then have just nothing left in the tank. You haven't set out a sustainable system for your growth towards that goal. You've tried to rush it. Yeah, I think we're all familiar with the story of the tortoise and the hare, where the tortoise and the hare are in a race, and the starting gun goes off, and the hare sprints away and takes most of the race. You know, it gets nearly to the end and then thinks, right, well, I'm miles ahead of Mr. Tortoise. I'm going to have a rest. I'm going to take a break. And the hare has a little nap. Meanwhile, Mr. Tortoise has been just plodding along slowly, taking step after step after step. And by the time the hare wakes up, the tortoise is practically on the finish line, and the hare has to really sprint again, but it doesn't quite make it in time. The tortoise actually crosses ahead of the hare. And to me, that was kind of the cycle that I was in for so long. You know, I'd go on these real sprints like the hare, but what I actually needed in my life was to be more like the tortoise, to just take those slow, plodding steps forward every single day. And it really helped me to take that step back and to slow down a bit in terms of kind of what I was doing in my life. And actually by making that space, it helped me to recognise, you know, here were the things that I knew I should be doing. How could I realistically fit those into my day on a day-to-day basis that was going to help me make that 1% per day change towards my goal? You know, those little micro habits that were going to stack up over the long term, over months and years, to really transform my life. And it also helped me to recognise some of those unconscious things that I was doing, like putting too much pressure on myself, when I guess I was setting goals and standards for myself that 5 year in the future version of me was capable of doing, but not the version of me that was in the present moment trying to get there was capable of. You know, I perhaps would have set myself a goal of working out 4 times or 5 times a week for an hour at each session, and I couldn't even stay consistent, you know, doing 5 minutes of exercise a day, let alone 5 hours a week. And so by building in this mindset that actually going the way of the tortoise and leaving some of those kind of self-sabotaging things behind, I was going to just make a small piece of progress every day. That really, really helped to change me and transform me. And I want to, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much. I want to give you something for free that I think will really help you to take those steps as well, and to just get into perspective those things in life that perhaps you know you should be doing, or perhaps you aren't really aware of yet. But there is a little ebook linked in the description. It's only about 30 pages long, and it will set out to you my philosophy on how to approach these habits so that we don't end up sabotaging ourselves, but actually we can take steps every day towards that future vision, that dream self, if you will. So yeah, it's free, and I think it will really, really help you to make those positive changes in your life. If you've enjoyed the video, please do hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed already, drop me a like and a comment, and until next time, take care. I'll catch you in the next one. God bless you.